Hi, everyone. I'm back with my third installment on readings from the Oracle of the Isles by Rebecca Caravalho. And I think I'm going to do a total of like maybe 4 of these before I will move on to the next deck. And I may come back and revisit this later. This is really a challenge to only do 4 because the cards, it doesn't matter how you shuffle them and pull them, you always get a great message. Even sometimes you get the same card twice, and still in the reading in the 3-card spread, it has a totally different meaning. So it's really a great deal. This reading and the question that I ask before drawing cards is usually a general of what do we need to know right now? What could help us on our spiritual journey, our spiritual path? If you haven't figured me out by now, you know that I love giving messages of encouragement and support. That's kind of the role that I find myself in. It is just something I love doing. I think that our lives are hard enough. You don't need more people beating you down and telling you how bad you are, or blowing smoke up orifices so badly that you get colon cancer or something. Not going to do that. I really just want to give messages of support. And this deck, the energy from it really helps. So this is a message about the journey, the path we're on, and what happens. The very first card is Flying High, and it says, find your wings and soar through the sky. Now, we love being in this position, up above, looking down on everyone else and everything around us, and we can see things so much more clearly there. And when we are in the flight zone up there in our spiritual journey, everything is fantastic. It's wonderful. Life is good. And then we hit a bird or a highline wire or something, and we come crashing down to the ground, and our spiritual journey at that moment just comes to an end. Kind of like one of those things where you have people walking around and something triggers them, they get mad, and it's like they want to scream to the other people, I am having a spiritual journey right now. Back off and leave me alone. We don't always get that say in how people interact with us. And very often, those triggers that we get, that is part of the spiritual journey. And we can only fly around so high and so long before something's got to bring us down, because we eventually have to come back to flight school and learn about new maneuvers and new destinations that we need to fly to. The second card addresses just that. This card says, derailed. When you find yourself derailed, don't let that be your end. There is always a way to put yourself back on track. This is important because I know for myself personally, when something happens to derail me, I don't see it for what it is. I'm like, man, I was doing so great. Everything was smooth. I was rocking and rolling. And then this happens and it completely stops me. What I'm not seeing is that those things that completely stop me are for a reason that actually is introducing the next chapter to what I need to learn and grow from. So it's about looking at the derailment for what it really is. It does stop us in our progress of what we feel is progress, but it's actually the most important lesson, because the derailment causes us to take a break, to stop and assess where we are, where we've been, and what we've been through, and how great we were doing. And everything was so perfect. It could have been the great day, but now suddenly it's just stalled. And in that period of being stalled is where we really start to go back inside and reflect on what's going on. And we dig deep and we start thinking about, why did this happen? What signs did I not see? And as we work with that energy long enough, we start to observe it for what it is. We take ourselves out of the destruction zone, we step away and we look at the destruction zone, and we start seeing the lessons that are there, and we glean the little pieces of knowledge and information that's going to help us. And when we put that together, all those little pieces together, they become little cobblestones. We put them in front of us, and one by one, we start walking our way forward as we walk away from the wreckage. Hopefully we had insurance, right? The third card is called Pathways. Pathway says, stay on the path. It will lead you to your destiny. So even though there was a derailment, that actually is part of the path. That introduces the next step of the path, the next direction we need to go. So these two go really, really well together. So regardless of how high we were flying, how great everything was going, we hit a derailment. It's not the end of the journey. It's actually the beginning of the next phase of the journey. It's a stop and refocus. Look at the wreckage, take what relics are still there, pack it all up, and slowly move forward on our path, because it does proceed forward from there. It's not the end of the road. It's just the beginning of a new direction that we will find ourselves headed. I hope that these cards spoke to you. It's a very simple message, but it is one that we deal with every day in our jobs, with the people that we meet. Some years ago, I listened to a podcast, and I honestly do not even remember who was the podcast. I think it was a man talking. I don't really remember. The only thing I do remember from that is one thing that the person said, and they said, anytime that something triggers you emotionally, pay attention to that. Don't focus on the situation, who the person was saying it. Ignore all of that and focus on the fact that you were emotionally triggered by it. The person on the podcast said that those emotional triggers are actually indicators, or things to raise awareness within us, that if I'm triggered by that, it's because it's something that I need to work on. Many times we are triggered on our path, the destruction or the derailment that triggers us. What we're actually seeing, we're seeing reflections from inside of ourselves. So when I look at something and it makes me angry, or I get an emotional response to it, it could be a reflection of what is going on inside myself, and I don't quite see it. So if we analyze those things and we really look at the derailment, whether it's a person or a situation, whatever it is, and we really look at that closely, and we start to think, what is there in that situation that reflects something in me? Why am I getting so upset about it? Is there something there I need to learn so that in the future I don't cause the same derailment for someone else? There's a lesson everywhere we look, even in the most horrible of situations. We call it wreckage, but honestly, it's life lessons and little gems that we pick up and we carry forward as we go on our pathway and move forward with that. There's always a new direction. I hope it resonates with you. Have a beautiful day, and thank you so much for your time.